incident in 2021 with St. James Sykson. He owned a gun store here, and he just recently had a 12-month probation for a violation of guns. Now, does that have anything to do with your press conference today?
It doesn't have anything to do with the press conference. It happened to have been my brother James Skelton that was raided by the ATF. No, it is any time that we can protect the rights of our citizens, we're going to do that.
Just so you know, each county maybe does things just a little different. How is zoning and business licensure handled up here? Is that just the county handles all unincorporated areas, or is like each municipality also have zoning?
So cities have their own zoning. The county has their own zoning in the unincorporated areas. So we issue those licenses. We also have an area approximately 3.5 miles from the shoreline of the lake that is a zoning area. And I'm guessing the ATF wanted to know if anybody that happened to have a federal firearms license and would be in the zoning area, were they in a proper zone to continue their business?
And I know your position is you're not going to assist any federal agency by passing along this information, but did the request for this information, just for your own internal purposes, make you wonder, well, do some of these businesses have proper licensure or proper zoning?
Well, you know, honestly, I didn't say this during the main conference, but I believe that the commissioners will get together, and it's very possible that we will pen an ordinance that would exempt anyone selling firearms in the county from planning and zoning or licensing requirements. So we'll just...
And is there anything else that the Camden residents should know?
That the Camden County Commission, their sheriff, and the county are here to help protect their rights. It's time that we have folks in elected office to stand up and do that and to protect those rights, and I believe that is part of why I was put in office.
Sounds like I forget the name, an ATF spokesperson told the Kansas City Star for their article this morning about this being kind of a routine thing, and that this was, though they mentioned something about this being a consideration in issuing new licenses and reissuing current licenses. Is that I don't, can you explain the context of what you think they mean by that? Do licenses have to be renewed by all firearms dealers on a regular basis? Could that be grounds for
They do. It's my
that?
understanding every 3 years they have to have their FFL redone, reinstated, what have you. So I'm confident that in the FFL somewhere there is a requirement to be in compliance with federal or with state and local laws, right? So I believe that they are using that as a tool to possibly weed out all the small gun shops that they possibly can. We can see across the country that there is a resurgence of enforcing firearm laws. And again, I believe the state of Missouri and those of us here in Camden County just simply do not recognize and understand or believe that any of federal firearms infringement are constitutional. They're all unconstitutional, including the licensing process. So anything pertaining to that is an unconstitutional act, and we're not going to participate that in any way.
Do you have you have much reason to have hope for the SEPA to the judge's decision to be reversed?
I'm confident it will be upheld, absolutely. Anti-commandeering doctrine has been around for a very long time. It was reaffirmed with Justice Scalia and the Supreme Court that it is a very good doctrine. And the federal government, and again, the ATF can find out this information without asking our employees to provide that. And that is part of anti-commandeering. They can go try to enforce whatever it is they want to enforce. We're not going to help them.
Did the employees bring this to your attention as a concern, or how did y'all find out about this?
They did, and as a matter of fact, I'm very pleased with our planning and zoning department for having brought this to my attention so that we can address this properly.
Any other issues y'all have bumped into with either the ATF related to this or something else, or other federal agencies in the last year or two that could be related and kind of broadly to what's going on here?
I came into office January 1, so I can't really talk to that, speak on that, but you know, I'm sure if it hasn't yet, it will be now.
I can speak to that a little bit.
Yeah.
I can tell you that when the county passed the Second Amendment Preservation Act, We were the first county in the state of Missouri to do so, possibly the first county in the nation. And as a result, the ATF refused to work with the county for a while. I don't know if that's still going on or not. But this kind of thing's very concerning. It's if you happen to sell guns to make a living, and they're looking into whether you are complying with land use codes, I wonder what other kind of regulations are they looking into? You know, do they check to see if you're obeying all the other state, county and city ordinances? Do they check to see if you have a broken taillight on your car, or if you've paid your taxes, or because these are not applicable laws. They don't have anything to do with enforcing gun legislation. So it's concerning. I don't think just because someone happens to sell guns as a business that they deserve that kind of scrutiny in their everyday lives.
So your thought, and maybe I guess presumably the commission is in kind of agreement on this, that it's a attempt to find a small unrelated infraction in order to justify perhaps shutting down a business. Is that kind of how you think? What do you think this is about?
Exactly.
I believe that's exactly what it is. I believe the ATF the federal government would like to squeeze out every small gun shop that they possibly can, because it's easier for them, especially with states starting to push back with things like the Second Amendment Preservation Act. It's easier for them to enforce their unconstitutional edicts if they can only have to enforce it on the big box stores or outfits that they know are there, and big corporations that are ready to comply, as they do usually with federal rules, because they don't want to lose their income and their businesses. So the bigger box stores will comply with these sorts of requests, and they want to squeeze the little guys out because they can't keep an eye on as many people.
In this case, that prompted this response, were these requests made about specific businesses,
Yes.
or just generally?
Four specific individuals carrying FFL licensed businesses at this time, yes.
I guess what I'm asking is, they didn't say we want all of them, or that they came to you with like a list of?
There were 4 individual emails, each one requesting information about one particular individual. So 4 separate businesses, FFL holders. Yeah.
You mentioned, and I wanted a little more clarity on how this worked. The county passed its own version of SEPA, is that right? And then was that pre the state's passage or after? I didn't know all the details on that. So it was before.
Right.
And so in essence, the state's version didn't say anything that the county's version didn't already say. I mean, how does that work? And is that something that you expect to be enforced by the sheriff's office, or protected by the sheriff's office, or how does that? So the hierarchy of that from the state to the county level in terms of a SEPA.
So obviously the state has the hierarchy in the law, and not only that, the Second Amendment Preservation Act passed at the state level has a $50,000 penalty if an agent or a government employee were to comply and provide information to the ATF or to assist them in enforcing these so-called laws. So it takes precedence over the county, but I believe by the county saying it to begin with, we also stand firm with that, and we will hold our own individuals accountable under that ordinance, if not the the state law.
So the state law has been, for the time kind of struck down, or whatever the effect that is currently by a judge's ruling, but the county's law has not been challenged legally. Is that the right way to
county's law
understand it?
has not been challenged legally. The state law has been challenged legally. However, it has already been appealed, and during that appeal process, it is still in full faith and enacted.
Okay.
I guess along those lines, let's say state Supreme Court. Is this a federal case, or is this a state?
It is a federal case.
Ultimately, let's say the state's law is struck down. Does that affect your understanding the county?
Not to my belief.
I don't believe so. I think it would.
So is it the county sheriff's office that stands between what you believe to be federal overreach and businesses and individuals here? I mean, who's there? Again, if the state law were struck down and the county still has its law, how does that work itself out?
Well, that's a little bit more, maybe some attorneys would have to answer that kind of question. I would still look to enforce that kind of activity and make sure that our folks are protected. And as you heard, Sheriff Helms is right on board with us. They do not support actions of that nature by the ATF as well.
Yeah, this is another means for the government to try to coerce people into behavior that they deem to be acceptable. We saw the same thing with COVID, when various cities and some counties, especially along the East Coast and down along the Eastern Seaboard, if you couldn't show that you got a vaccination, you couldn't renew a business license, for example, or you couldn't get a bus pass, because they thought that everyone should be vaccinated, and it was the government's effort to try to force you to get vaccinated. So we're seeing something similar here, I feel like, from federal agencies, where they're taking laws that are not applicable to gun legislation at all and looking into people's everyday private lives. We swim in a sea of laws and regulations and ordinances from the federal, state, county, and city governments, and I'm sure every one of us violate a dozen laws every day without knowing it. So I don't think it's fair to place gun dealers under a closer scrutiny than anyone else, especially when you factor in the concept that they're selling guns, and guns, unlike selling clothes or cars or ice cream, are a God-given constitutional right. So I don't think it's right that they should be treated any differently than anyone else, and I don't think our county government should be part of helping them do that.
You mentioned that there was just 4 emails with one person. Can you reveal that business or that person?
I don't know that I should. I probably should contact them and let them,
How did that person feel?
I did contact one gun dealer. They're happy that we're standing up for their rights, and they also believe that the federal government can get this information other than coming through our offices. So there still is a remedy for those individuals, because we were concerned if someone might get their license pulled because of this, right? But they have ways of being able to prove their residency and or their licensing and or compliance with anything that the county might have.
So would you couch this whole incident in terms of SEPA? Essentially, you as a county declining to cooperate with what you believe to be an infringement on Second Amendment rights that's all kind of spelled out in SEPA? Is that kind of the umbrella here?
Yes, not only are we making sure that we're in compliance with Missouri law, but it also is my personal belief to do it this way, honestly.
That's all I got.
Sir, real quick, so I'm sure I have it on camera. Can you tell me your name and house call?
My name's Don Williams, DonWilliams. I'm the 2nd District County Commissioner.
And you're presiding commissioner?
Correct.
Thank
And
you.
then can I get your name?
My name is Ike Skelton. I'm the presiding commissioner of Camden County.